D'être venus encore aussi nombreux pour les Jeudis du Moko. Donc ce soir, on a le très très grand plaisir d'accueillir Huma Bhabha, qui inaugure son exposition au Moko demain. Une mouche est apparue et disparue. Elle va nous présenter une conférence qui va être nourrie de beaucoup de ses influences, mais aussi d'un certain nombre d'œuvres. Donc beaucoup d'images vont défiler. La conférence est en anglais. Je serai là pour traduire les questions et les réponses. Huma a raccourci un peu son temps de présentation pour que ce temps d'échange puisse avoir lieu à l'issue de la conférence. Et donc pour vous dire juste deux mots de Huma et de l'exposition. Donc Huma Bhabha, elle est née en 1962 au Pakistan. Elle est arrivée aux États-Unis pour s'y installer dans les années 80. Il a suivi un parcours d'études en art à la Rhode Island School et à Columbia. Et puis elle s'est installée à Poughkeepsie. Et depuis, elle travaille différents matériaux qui à chaque fois vont inspirer des nouvelles formes, qui vont se mêler à des références et des influences issues aussi bien d'une culture populaire, d'une culture cinématographique, mais aussi d'une culture artistique très universelle et très étalée dans le temps, puisque ça va des fouilles archéologiques jusqu'au plus contemporain. Et vous verrez qu'au travers de ces œuvres, on peut ressentir cette présence qui est à la fois puissante, unique, universelle, et qui est surtout là pour accepter l'accident, l'échec, et pour en faire ressortir quelque chose qui nous parle à tous. Voilà, je vais laisser la parole à Huma Bhabha et on se retrouve à la fin. Merci. And you need to talk closer to the mic. Oui. Il faudra éteindre les lumières et elle veut éteindre la lumière.
I'd like to start with a poem by a Shelley called Jeudis. I met a traveler from an antique land who said, two vast and trunkless legs of stone stand in the desert. Near them on the sand, half sunk, a shattered visage lies, whose frown and wrinkled lip and sneer of cold command tell that its sculptor well who those passions read, which yet survive stamped on these lifeless things. The hand that mocked them and the heart that fed, and on the pedestal these words appear. My name is Ozymandias, King of Kings. Look on my work, mighty and despair. Nothing beside remains. Round the decay of that colossal wreck, boundless and bare, the lone and level sands stretch far away. The first image is untitled from 2007, a color photograph. It is from a series of 4 photos I took in Karachi. I made the 2 feet on a trip home and then decided to document them as characters in a landscape. This next image makes me think of the beginning to a Sergio Leone movie, or an end to a biblical disaster, or something from a recent newscast. I took this photo in Karachi. Karachi and New York City are 2 places where I've spent most of my life, and the influence they have had on my work has slowly emerged. My connection to a special kind of physical rawness found in Karachi, where I was born and raised, and the monumental scale of the concrete canyons of New York. Relationships started to emerge in my work between my fondness for the rough edges and the unnatural roughness and ruins being created every day by ongoing conflicts. Approaching events indirectly by way of specific moments in the history of sculpture and responding to the physical connections of a certain kind of rural and urban landscape. The stories and themes I'm interested in are, for example, war, colonialism, displacement, memories of home, and the contemporary ruins of war, but without losing sight of the comedic, theatrical elements and the inherent humor that rescues from despair and probes events surgically within the shadow of popular culture, make up the sculptural landscape that I work within. When I make my work, there is no set plan, and it develops between a balance of practicality and form. I will be showing a variety of images from the ancient up to the contemporary, which either directly or indirectly inform my work, along with images of my own work. The next couple of images are from undeveloped areas and active construction sites, and some of these structures are where construction workers live. It looks like shelter as sculpture. They actually depict more the idea of the urban ruin and are raw materials for my sculpture. This is a drawing on a black and white photograph from 2007, and it's untitled. A painting by Julie Moretu titled Conjured Parts I from 2016, a combination of landscape, graffiti, and urbanism. Sculpture, more than any other art form, is about time and history. The use of materials which can last for centuries. And now in recent history, there is an increased use of fragile temporary materials that seem to reflect the speeding up of decay, producing instant ruins. One can recall a historical connection to romanticized ruins, like Robert Smithson in his Monuments of Panacée, which are on the screen. Like him, I see beauty in such forsaken landscapes. Their scale and rawness seep into my work. The next two images are of one of the larger sculptures I have done, and it fuses all the ideas I have been discussing so far. It has also led me to understand how to install my works. The title of this work is And in the Track of 100,000 Years, Out of the Heart of Dust, Hope Sprang Again Like Greenness. This is from 2007. The title is from a part of a rubaiyat by Umar Khayyam, an Islamic poet from Iran who lived between 1048 and 1131. This sculpture can be read on multiple levels, as a landscape, characters on a stage, where ruins go to die, a sculpture garden where the history of sculpture has ping-ponged itself into dust and serenity, theater in the round, actors so ancient that they become science fiction, staring off stage, waiting for Godot, or the next tragedy. A palette born in a cubist world, witness to the birth of modern war machines, monuments, obelisks, temples, hewed from refuse and shadows. The next two images are from the movie Stalker, a science fiction classic by Andrei Tarkovsky from 1979. This film reflects and shares my ideas of beauty in the ruined landscape. It has an element of romanticism and optimism that I'm strongly attracted to. Post-apocalyptic landscapes that I relate to, like Mondrian crashing into Turner, the fantasy of industrialism collapsing. I'm interested in beauty, even if it's completely distressed. While counterintuitive, looking for this type of beauty is not necessarily subjecting oneself to a feeling of despair. In fact, it motivates one to become emotionally invested in an optimistic way. I believe this is why I make use of the materials that do not have much of an identity on their own. This image is from a Karachi Urdu newspaper And what I find interesting is that the page on the right has articles describing actual monuments and sculptures from the ancient Indus Valley civilization from 2400 BC and the Gandhara period. And the page on the left has a headline that the war from Afghanistan has now reached Pakistan, and has a photo of a child and an older man, probably his grandfather, standing next to a bombed new ruin. This image is from around 18 years ago, but is still very timely. This is an image from a Thomas Hirshhorn show in response to that war. He successfully incorporated African art, current events, modern abstraction into this striking installation. But the political reality expressed in the show made it unpopular and disturbing, as if art is not the place for this kind of discussion. African art has been a huge influence on my work. The scale, the power, and the tactility are very inspiring to me. And I look at a lot of images, especially when I'm stuck. This is an earlier piece titled Centaur from 2000, and it relates to the next image. Joseph Beuys, Chair with Fat. I'm a big fan of his work, his connection to history, fiction, and non-fiction. I like the ritualistic quality and how this work has a fragile, transformative mythology. This is a photo of Beuys' studio. I like how the work has been photographed, and then that makes one think of Brancusi's photographs of his sculptures in the studio. An intense view of a Michael Heiser piece called Double Negative. Like Beuys, it has a timelessness, but is permanent and solid. A drawing on a photograph that I took from 2007. A broken atlas figure from the Temple of Jupiter in Agrigento, Sicily. An ancient eroded stupa from 4000 BC in southern Pakistan. This is a drawing of mine, untitled, from 2007, ink on black and white photo. Makes me think of a certain drone-like viewpoint. A lot of these early photos, photo drawings, as I call them, are on photos I took in Karachi. Gradually, I began to use photos taken in other places. The next image, this one is from a vast complex of abandoned temples at Angkor Wat in Cambodia, built between 879 and 1218. I like how the stone is stacked and carved. I myself use stacking as armature in my sculptures. A beautiful relief from Babylon. The demon from Jeepers Creepers, the movie. Ancient Roman stone head. A beautiful mask by Matthew Monahan. Here is an example of a contemporary use of fragile materials like paper, referring to an image or mask which seems ancient and timeless. This work is titled They Don't Speak from 2007. I started making heads and busts around 2004. I was very aware of Picasso and wanted to make large heads. This is also when some of the materials I used for my armatures, like styrofoam and clay, were introduced. I also began to like how the materials complemented each other. It was a combination I had not seen before, and realizing how modeling clay in an expressionistic way was something that I really enjoyed. The work really started to develop in a rich direction. This one is called JC from 2006. Untitled from 2008. An image of a tank blocking the entrance to the Baghdad Museum. I'm interested in how here the ancient is contrasted with the frighteningly new, an endless formula of symmetry. This is a sculpture by Sterling Ruby. I like how it relates to the Boli sculpture, and yet the materials are, in this case, synthetic, and in this case, natural, but with a very similar spirit, very fetishistic, ritualistic in their use. An image of again from a newspaper in Karachi, of an I-beam being transported by a donkey cart. It's a common sight, and the donkeys are amazingly resilient. Also one of my favorite animals. This sculpture is titled The Main Player from 2007. It is an important piece for me, larger than some of the earlier heads that I showed you. I refer to these as large heads, but in this one, I have developed the idea of the landscape much more. And also, there's a shift in scale that takes place from landscape to architecture and from armature to bust. Balzac by Rodin. I happened to be looking at a lot of Rodin, and I had a book of him. And when I first started working with clay in Mexico, I was with my husband, Jason Fox, and a friend in Guadalajara. Lots of wet clay in black garbage bags and a Rodin book. I experimented and I realized I could model clay. Early clay sculpture after that visit to Mexico. It's untitled from 2004. It's romantic, referring to Balzac, and Beauty and the Beast by Jean Cocteau. This is an ancient image of the Laocoon group as monkeys. A woodcut from 1545 by Niccolo Boldini, replacing primates with humans, attracted me. A drawing from 2015, ink and acrylic and collage on a color photo, approximately 2 meters by 1 meter, larger than what I've shown you up till now, and this is my Laocoon group. Image of an ancient Ganesh. This piece is titled Sleeper from 2005. It was my first life-size standing figure. I was thinking of the chorus, and it's interesting how the pedestal became part of the armature and the sculpture. It's also a found object. Is it stuck in the white cube pedestal, or is it part of it? I like this kind of ambiguity. My pieces are made with the idea of each view referring to something else. So you have to walk around them to experience them completely. An early chorus. An ancient Egyptian couple. I'm really drawn to the idea of walking monuments as embodied by early Greek chorus and ancient Egyptian figures. Inspired by these sculptures, I became especially fascinated with the idea of making feet without bodies, as in the first image I showed. An ancient Aztec stone sculpture from Coatlicue in Mexico City. Graded from 2006. Further explores my interest in a figure with movement. It is a Roman torso with 2x4 chorus legs, also based on The Walking Man by Rodin, and this piece seems sadly contemporary. I showed earlier a photo of Brancusi's studio. It has a real cinematic element, which I try to develop in my photos of sculpture, which is this one. This is a photo taken in Mexico, titled Nelly, from 2003, which also shows further experiments in clay modeling and my experiments with a cinema-like setting. For me, it is like Vermeer meets Bernini's Saint Teresa in Ecstasy. Giacometti. His sculptures sometimes give the feeling that time flattens things. They look so weathered they could be ancient. His vision is also imbued with a cinematic aesthetic. The out-of-focus imagery, which even functions as depth. He is creating perspective with something directly in front of him. Rauschenberg's monogram from 1955. This work is called Bumps in the Road from 2008. The title refers to a US soldier's term for driving over dead bodies in Iraq. I liked how I developed the idea of the stage, the plinth, and the road. And looking back at the larger piece I showed earlier, called And in the Track of 100,000 Years, this sculpture has much more implied movement. Something that I get very much from looking at Rodin. It makes me also think of Don Quixote and Sancho Panza traveling down Cormac McCarthy's The Road. The Burghers of Calais by Rodin. You can almost imagine a camera tracking around the figures. It is very theatrical in a modern way. Magic Carpet, 2003. The pedestal is clear plastic, cheap special effects, and it's about love. Donatello's David. David Almage. I love the grafting here of the classical with the sci-fi. This work is untitled, from 2005, an Imperial Stormtrooper reclining. This work is untitled from 2005. It's the second version of this idea, first made in 2002, and originally came out of working with real clay in Mexico, and noticing how the black garbage bag covering the clay to keep it from drying also resembled a figure, a body bag, a prostrate, praying figure. I see it as a memorial. This sculpture can be assembled and reassembled. This is a photographic work taken at the beach in Karachi of the same sculpture. It became more cinematic and the narrative changes. Another sculpture from 2005 that I photographed in Karachi with the same idea of documenting them, but also using photography as a medium to explore the implied cinematic narrative. Cindy Sherman film still, number 21, from 1979. This work is called Bagram, from 2010, ink on black and white photo, approximately 2 meters by 1 meter. Museum Without Walls, from 2005. I started making a large head inspired by Picasso's Head of a Woman at MoMA, which led to realizing the possibilities of landscape, modernism, and scale that came up. The exposed armature could be read as a modernist architectural structure or a postmodernist one. Picasso, same crouching figure, giant head. It is also about recycling. Man of No Importance, 2006. These images highlight scale changes that I've talked about, and I see these scale changes as metaphors for time changes. Prehistory, post-history, contemporary. I see these ideas of shifting ideas of time in the writings of Philip K. Dick, which have had a huge influence on my work. For me, science fiction, literature, and films provide imagery that helps me mutate and modernize a lot of my early modernist influences. I don't think Giacometti and Picasso were reading science fiction or watching sci-fi movies like Alien and Terminator. I need to go beyond current reality to be creative, and all this provides great source material. And this is an image of Philip K. Dick, a beautiful woodcut that I found. This work is untitled from 2006, a white styrofoam totem with painted clay hands and a clay head. Ethos, from 2006, I first started carving and scratching and as a drawing on a sculpture. This one and this image are both life-size. Born Darkly, from 2008, carving and painting the foam with clay. Detail. Untitled, from 2009, an early cork sculpture. I found some cork in a greeting card store that was selling off their inventory near where I live, and it has led to a whole series of cork sculptures. This work is titled 1000, from 2009. It is a depiction of medieval effigies, a sarcophagus or a tomb or a crate, with on top, and where the sculptures on the top are representations of what was buried inside. They can also be seen as a reclining figure or a pair of architectural models for imagined tombs. The graffiti is inspired by what you see here. I mean, when I say here, I'm talking about the US, and graffiti in Pakistan. Perhaps the messages are political, religious, or abstract. Ink on black and white photo, originally made for reconstructions, a portfolio of 16 photogravure prints and 2 woodcuts. I started taking photographs in Karachi around 2006-07, mostly of the area close to the city beach. And some of the photos and drawings I have shown document the yearly changes. It's an area which reveals the landscape without any construction. I was fascinated by the idea of using unfinished construction sites or foundations as imaginary plinths for monumental sculptures, which is what I tried to draw on them. Francis Bacon, Screaming Pope, from 1953. The Orientalist, 2007. It's my second bronze. It is life-size, seated figure with a silver nitrate patina. The title is from the book by Edward Said, which I was reading again at that time, concerning the historical Western perceptions of the East. Said analyzes the history and falseness of Orientalism in an attempt to show how racist, limiting and racist historical ideologies can be. It has the face of Dorian Gray as a metaphor for corrupt ideas such as Orientalism, which thrived during the Victorian period. It is also an Egyptian sphinx, a seated god, or a cyborg king. I tried to here also take advantage of how a multitude of materials can be unified by the bronze casting process. Imagine Now for Ages, 2019, another seated figure made with a multitude of materials found and new, skeletal chairs from my childhood, clay, discarded dog toys, styrofoam and bark, among others. More drawings from 2007, ink on black and white photos taken in Karachi. And then I started to add color around 2008. It's an amazing African sculpture. The symmetry was a big influence on the pastel drawings I began to do, and so was the face of one of my favorite character actors, Lance Henriksen. I have a lot of respect for character actors. They work very hard are very talented, true artisans of their craft. And I like seeing myself as an artisan who uses my hands. Ink and Pastel on Paper from 2007, untitled. This is a piece from 1994, also untitled, an older mixed media mask sculpture. My interest in portraiture is consistent, even if the process changes. Ink on Black and White Photo from 2009. It's an idea inspired by Picasso's lithographs and film noir lighting. Ink and Pastel again with collage from 2011. This is an image from Kippenberger's series of amazing lithographs inspired by Jericho's Raft of the Medusa. They were made before he died. I was thinking of Kippenberger's image of the lithographs and this image from La Ventura, the Antonioni film from 1960, when the couple are going to the island where the woman disappears. Thinking about these kinds of relationships set the mood that I was in when I made this next work, titled My Skull is Too Small, 2009. It's from 2009. It is death as traveling at sea, going over to the other side, but not moving, calling for help or waving goodbye. It is also a kind of memorial. This piece, though very different in how it reads, further explores some of the ideas I was working with in the work titled 1000. The pedestals I am using in these were also recycled. The graffiti in My Skull is Too Small is more personal, and the names and private messages, phrases and decoration, they work functions as phrases and decorations on a boat. Untitled 2010, from 2010, a large ink drawing on photo with collage. I started using images of dogs and wildlife from calendars as collage elements because they looked so good. It also reflects my anxiety of the ongoing destruction of the global ecosystems. This work is titled Tupac Amaru from 2010. It is also life-size. Student from 2009, cork sculpture with styrofoam. I ran out of cork, so I decided to add styrofoam, and I think the combination was quite successful. Ghost from 2008. Lecturer from 2010. My first cork bronze. Very comfortable in the company of antiquities. God of Some Things from 2012. It's a patinated bronze. This one is approximately a little bit over 2 meters high. It has the effect of the effect of the cork here translates into bronze, makes it look very molten and heavy like lava. I'm playing with the illusion that can be created by bronze. I like the idea of a non-religious artist creating my own gods and my own religious icons versus the history of art where artists create work for the state-sanctioned religion of the time. This work is titled Thought and Scribe from 2012. It is approximately 3 meters by 2 meters by 2 meters, a little bit over that. It's quite large. It is based on an Egyptian sculpture. The plexi creates a sci-fi element. It seems to be almost levitating. Egyptians as aliens is a common sci-fi theme. It is also an homage to John Chamberlain. And my scribe is a crushed, reclining figure. There are some details. This work is titled Unnatural Histories from 2012. I was inspired by how landscape can be like skin or flayed skin. It has a very strong front and back, and it is made up of 5 components that fit together. And the tire tread is 11 feet, which is approximately 4 meters, and a found cardboard cutout, and some details. There is no killing what can't be killed. 2012, approximately 2 meters tall. Larger drawings on photographs from 2013 and up to 16. I started taking photos in different places and using centerfold images from High Times magazine, given to me by a friend. They cut through the space like giant traveling spores. The next 3 drawings are ink with pastel and collage with dogs and wolves from 2014. And the next one, they're all untitled. This one is also this is from 2015. This work is titled Constantium from 2014, a patinated bronze with a chain. A large drawing from 2015 on white photo backdrop paper, made with cork dust, studio traffic, like radiograms, tracking the forest of my sculptures, covered with the dust of footprints and paint residue, a rubbing that appears like a map of a tomb where sculptures are housed, ghosts of the studio process, and thinking of Man Ray. Against what, against whom? A large cork and styrofoam sculpture from 2014. Special guest star from 2016. A new theatrical twist, breaking away from the usual either vertical or horizontal orientation of figurative sculpture. Here I am tilting the plinth, the figure, at a 45-degree angle by placing a simple welded metal stand underneath. The resulting angle creates a dynamism and drama that activates the reclining figure, a figure which puts Jasper Johns in an erotic encounter with my own version of post-Louise Bourgeois figurative sculpture. This new sculpture highlights my long-term interest in revisiting the history of figurative sculpture through the time machine of contemporary cinematic science fiction and horror. It's also very democratic, as there are a lot of ideas, but no one idea dominates. Receiver from 2019. Left foot forward, archaic smile, almost clown-like, facing off in the next image with Queen Victoria. This is a painted and patinated bronze, which is approximately 3.5 meters high. I'm sorry, I might be giving the wrong, because I'm trying to figure out the meters. Maybe I'm making them too large. We Come in Peace. It's from 2018. 2 companions have landed on the roof of the Met. I've always loved sci-fi, and especially the concept repeated often in movies and novels of the extreme future mashed up with the extreme past. The pyramids being created by extraterrestrials or mutants, for example. In the Met rooftop installation, both figures reflect this concept in how they appear and relate to each other. Ultimately, they are both monuments. The standing figure has come to defend, summoned by the other, can be seen as a victor and defender. The garbage bag figure, praying corpse figure, is a symbol of the conquered or the victims. It is like the Sphinx, except the figure, the head is bowed down in submission, and the arms outstretched. And it has a tail of rubble, but the figure also has the potential for rising up. The Sphinx has as the 5,000-year guardian of history, returning as a healer. As far as humor in my work is concerned, the figures can also be characters in some offbeat, absurd science fiction or hammer horror film. For me, this potential reading is important because it helps keep the work from becoming too self-righteous and one-dimensional. We come in peace by itself, thinking of Balzac by Rodin, Predator, Quatliqueur, and some other giants I have seen. Vietnam, 2018, fourth version of this idea, but now truly monumental and in bronze. Tailor-made Highlander from 2019, smaller scale cork sculpture with an invisible pedestal. Maybe it reminds you of an earlier sculpture I showed on a plexi pedestal, giving the feeling of it floating or flying. Ground, this is from 2019, relief sculpture with cork and tire tread. The Past is a Foreign Country from 2019. Again, it's a relief with the same materials. I Know from 2021, a half architectural, half sculptural, half votive relief sculpture, also larger than life size. An image of an install from my show at the Baltic. The show was titled Against Time from 2020. A meeting place, a gathering. It is a 3D spectacle, a stage for the sculptures as actors. I see, again, the installing the work in a show as an opportunity to stage a recreation of imaginary events. Ripley, from 2011, is named after the female protagonist in the Alien film series. Number 1, 2021, painted bronze, but this is a tiny little figure, very compressed. An image of number 1 and a bunch of smaller bronzes, which I made for my show in 2021, titled Facing Giants. This is another view of another room from Facing Giants from 2021. And this install resembles a room of archaeological finds. I was thinking about counter monuments, the idea of capturing the spiritual quality inherent in any structure, large or small, which conveys the feeling of its eternity. Open Door from 2021, modeled plaster and clay, painted Janus head. That's the other side. Amy from 2021, anxious, votive, mysterious, and sublime. The next 3 drawings are from 2021, all with collage and ink on paper. This work is titled Pilot from 2022, a reclining figure. After repeatedly watching Alien last summer, I resolved my ideas on how to address the reclining figure encompassed in a console, like Ripley. Writer from 2022, a powerful personal deity showing the biological passage of time. This one is like approximately, it's a quarter of a meter tall. This is an install from my show in 2022 at Casa Wabi in Oaxaca, Mexico. I recently had this opportunity to work with brick-fired clay, and the next images will show you more of those clay experiments. The fragmented install in this Tadao Ando designed concrete gallery was based on a sculpture by Joseph Beuys titled Virgin from 1961. The clay sculptures are laid on cast concrete plinths that are supposed to give the impression of rising high and low like an undulating landscape. It's one body and many body parts to make up a body. It also resembles a tomb. The last image I'm going to show you, and the title of this work is Sentinel from 2021. It is permanently installed at Casa Wabi, a watchful, benign spirit merging with the landscape. Thank you.
Thank you very, very much for this very rich presentation. Donc, merci beaucoup à Huma. Est-ce que vous avez des questions, des commentaires, des besoins de précision en termes de traduction? Mais là, je pense que vous avez eu un très bon aperçu à la fois de sa pratique, de ses influences, de ses centres d'intérêt et de comment on peut nourrir une pratique artistique de façon très ouverte et enrichissante. Mais je vous passe la parole. Un autre micro doit circuler aussi, peut-être. Il faut lever la main. Ou pas.
Hi, hello. So you were saying that your favorite animal is a donkey. And so a donkey could be stubborn. This is the traduction. Têtu.
Ouais, stubborn.
Stubborn. Are you? No, my question is more about like your process and like how do you work at the studio? Are you somebody who are going to work every day? Like you have your schedule, or it's something very open?
Yes, I work every day. I try to. Sometimes I get lazy, but yes, I try to work every day. Is that what you asked? What's your favorite medium to work with? All the ones I showed you. I keep looking for one.
How do you situate your work with influences like Afrofuturism or Arab futurism or all this kind of futurism that are appearing today?
How do you situate your work with Afrofuturism or Arabic futurism or all kinds of futurism that are more and more influenced today, but not today, from the 70s?
I guess I try to exist within my own idea of futurism rather than taking on the responsibility of what you just mentioned. I try to stay away from a very didactic idea of identity. I prefer that the work is poetic and open-ended, and I'm interested in science fiction, but I don't think I fit into the realm of Afro or Arabic futurism specifically. I'm sure.
What did you think made you start making art?
Sorry, again.
What do you think made you start making art?
I realized when I was a teenager that I would like to become an artist. doing. So I thought that it should be easier for me to follow in the direction that was easier for me.
You said you started working with clay in Mexico. Did you start it already big, or how did you come to do such big sculptures, and what was your process?
For a very long time, my work was quite on a smaller scale because didn't have much money, only doing what I could afford to do. The scale and the works became larger as the space that I was able to, my studio became bigger, and yes, I mean, the more space you have, and then you have you feel like you can experiment and what have, I mean, for a long time I made work that wherever I would go, I would have to take it with me, so that was also one of the reasons why the work always remained on a smaller scale, because I didn't have a place to store it. So as my situation changed, so I was able to be a little bit more ambitious.
You were talking about a torso you made, and you said that you were not okay with the fact that it looked like a contemporary piece.
She said that you were talking about a torso that you made, and you were not happy as considering it as a contemporary piece.
Was it the degraded?
You said that it seemed sadly contemporary.
Yes, because it seems sadly contemporary because it has no arms and legs, and look at images on. I mean, it's contemporary in terms of what is happening in the world. That's what I meant. When you lose parts of your body due to being in different places, because of war, because of various other things. And I was thinking of Rodin, who also made The Walking Man, and my version was made out of different materials, but it reflected that anxiety of how, what are the sort of, what happens when you are in a catastrophic situation.
T'avais pas une question? Si, bah vas-y en premier.
When you make sculptures, especially the big ones, like, do you have a very precise idea of what you're gonna do? Or like, do you draw, for example, or do you start already with what you have in mind and maybe it evolves as you're making it? What's the process?
I don't usually make drawings for the sculptures, but I mean, if it's of many components, I do have to take measurements of how big the space is, where it's going to be shown, if it's site specific. And in that case, I do have to sort of do some preparation, but if it's usually like the single figures and stuff, I think what I do, I try to figure out how big I want to make it, and that's pretty much all of the preparation that I do. I make a cross totem, whatever size it's going to be. What happens later on is, more not based on drawings. It's just more what's in my head.
Okay, thank you.
Hi. I just wanted to know if you can tell us more about your link to Picasso's work.
My what?
Your link to Picasso's works.
He's an artist who, anytime you have any, you want to figure out anything and you look at his work and there's always an answer to a problem. So besides being a huge fan of his work, it's always very helpful to me to turn to his work or some of the other people that I mentioned to figure out how to resolve problems that I have when I'm doing the process of making.
Okay, and does it have a link to colonialism?
Yes, I guess. I mean, in the end, a lot of things come through. It just depends on how successfully one can interpret that, in the work.
Thank you.
Moi, je vais poser ma question en français, si vous voulez bien. Vous avez cité comme l'une de vos références importantes Edward Said, qui est un théoricien, qui était un théoricien universitaire palestinien. Comment est-ce que les événements tragiques du monde passé, actuel, les injustices qui traversent nos sociétés, impactent-elles votre travail ?
I think they've had a very strong impact for the last 20 years because we seem to be in an endless state. No matter how much, it's like for the last, most of my adult life seems to be, there's always a war going on. And I was asked earlier today, like, what do I hope for? And, obviously one hopes for a time when this would end, but I am not very hopeful.
First of all, thank you. It was super interesting. My question is, you talked a lot about sci-fi, especially sci-fi movies, Ripley, and also Tarkovsky. So I want to ask you if you ever tried to work on video medium to experiment it, or do you want to, for example, make movies with your own characters, sculpture, or materials?
To be part of a movie, but I don't think
As Ripley.
But I don't think I have the knowledge, because it takes a long time to reach a stage where you feel like what you're thinking and what you're doing can be conveyed in a mature kind of way, where it doesn't where it's successful, where people can actually relate to it. And but I'd like to be part of it. I myself don't want to take on doing a video or film because it's a medium which is far too complicated for me to work within. But if someone asked me to...
As a cyborg, for example?
To become a cyborg?
In a movie, I mean.
I would like to design something, yes. Okay. That would be fun, yes.
Alors, est-ce qu'il y a encore des questions? Alors, s'il n'y a plus de questions, on va se donner rendez-vous dès demain à 18h au MoCo pour le vernissage de cette incroyable exposition. Et puis aussi, attendez, juste, il faut que je rappelle que nous remercions notre partenaire, le Midi Libre, et que la semaine prochaine, nous recevrons Patrice Maniglier. Et voilà, et encore une fois, merci beaucoup, Huma, pour cette conférence.
I did it very fast.